Good evening and welcome to yet another episode of Let's Drone Out. This is episode 232 where we're having a Mega Whoop special. So with us this week we have Tony.
Bonjour.
We have Gav.
Evening.
We have Curry.
Hello.
NJ.
Hey everyone.
Andy.
How do?
Nige.
Hi.
And I am Frank. So good evening everybody. And I think, first of all, Tony, why don't you introduce Gav and what's dragged him along this week to talk to us?
This is Gav. He's our mini tiny whoop track specialist. He's been at a couple of our MI5 events, MI5, MI6 events. Haven't you, Gav?
Yeah, that special one where we just flew around for the spies. Yeah, MI5 event.
Well, you know I love saying MI5, not what it's supposed to be. He's our track, little track. Tell him about your track.
Yeah,
your track you do.
Well, I've been doing it since Brighton, hasn't it? So so, basically, I don't know, the second or third MI5.
Yeah, you say it properly.
But basically, I've been designing, along with a couple other guys, we've been designing this kind of crazy thing that we've done a whole night course, your standard with a load of LEDs. But then we've kind of made it into Mario Kart with we've got weapons and there's lights, there's sounds, you've got things like
fans come on,
fans, automated Nerf darts. Lightning attack is just simple. The entire course, which the course can cover quarter of a mile, and as many LEDs as you can shove in within that quarter of a mile. And sort of lightning attack will set every LED off at 100%, 10 times a second for a couple of seconds. And if you fly in, you're crashing basically at that point.
You gave me an app for you design an app as well, right?
Yeah, it's got an app on your phone. It's all voice controlled. Basically, you've got things like tournament mode. I've just designed a new bit for it, which is an automated streaming system. Basically, you enter in like 8 people's names, and then on the app you just say start tournament, and for 20 minutes, basically, it will take over completely. Up on OBS, you'll get it will change screen. It will say next race is pilot, and it will say their name, pilot versus pilot. And then after a second, it'll give you the opportunity to press start race or just say start race. And at that point, switches cameras, goes onto the camera view of the 2 drones. Again, pilot names in the corners. And there's a little lap counter, so on-screen lap counter. And basically at that point, you're doing your race. I've just done it 2 people racing at the moment because it's better for showing on camera. Mm-hmm. But the system, you can easily bump it up to like 4 or more, I guess. Basically it'll run a full tournament. It'll count the number of laps you're doing. As stuff happens, you can hit weapons as pickups, and you can go through a weapons gate, and you can select weapons and things like that. And then it's a standard race along with all the weapons, full sound system. So you've got like stereo sound with sound effects on top of that. Stuff like if you got the thunder, if you have the lightning, you have a big thunder clap. And it will do the race as a sort of normal race with weapons. At the end of the race, so whoever wins, it will automatically enter them into the next heat. And basically, it will go through heats 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's your 8 players going 2 versus 2. And then it will go on to the next round of heats. It'll all bring it up all automatically. This player versus this player. 2 more heats, and that goes through the winners. And then you have a final heat, which is the winners of the winners.
And brave.
Keen-eyed viewers may recognize Gav from a few weeks ago when we were at the MK Makerspace, and Gav brought along a lot of gear then, and I think helped out in launching quads at Tony's face.
Yeah, but it was
Thanks,
I did
thanks for
get
that.
a couple of good ones. Might have gone a little bit fast.
What's your
but,
YouTube names? Have you put any of the stuff up on?
I
YouTube?
just actually put a video live tonight. So basically, the reason I've come on here for anyone who like people who might have like had to go on the course and that at Popham or Weston Park. But basically, I've kind of kept working on it, and we've got all the kit now so that it sets up really quickly. You can do a full course setup in sort of 45 minutes, which still sounds a lot for a course, but we're talking 20,000 LEDs and all the weapons and the media system and all of that. And basically, we're going to try and do a race sometime in the next couple of weeks, possibly not this Saturday, but next Saturday. And we're going to need some pilots.
Yes.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to be a part of it, if you have a look on the channel, I think the links are in the description of this video. And basically, you can see the lighting test we did there.
And what's your channel called?
Binary Throttle.
Binary Throttle. Search that on YouTube. Frank, can you?
It is in the description.
It's in the description. Cool. So we've linked in there. Excellent.
Yep. But
yes, we've flown it before, and I've enjoyed pressing the lightning button while people are flying.
especially when it's plugged into Fraser Munro's enormous speakers.
When he had it running through a preamp when he wasn't meant to, and we set the lighting off and pretty much made everyone's ears bleed.
Yeah, I've thoroughly enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was very entertaining. I think I was the other side of Popham, and I thought something had blown up, but there we go.
On top of that, we've now got some music as well, so it's going to be just far worse. Yeah.
So we're running a test 2 weeks Saturday.
Well, it's not a test. We're ready to do a tournament.
Okay,
so we're just going to do it. It's not inviting like everyone. We're just going to get a bunch of people that want to join in. We'll get the names down, and we'll just invite a few people along to give it a go. You'll be lugging some kit, but that's that.
Well,
I'm going to go.
There's a key live streaming it.
Yeah.
So, sorry.
Possibly live stream it. We're definitely going to record it. We'll see how it goes, and if we can, we will, and if not, it will be recorded.
It'll be on your channel, will it? If you do.
Yeah, I'll probably post it up in LDO as well, and
cool.
yeah.
Yeah,
previously, I got the impression that your courses were never quite finished. And
No,
you constantly worked on them, but they are. It's like you go there, you can set it up. 45 minutes, you can race. Is that the deal now?
It's all on PCBs. I got all the kit made. I've got the kit made in China. It's all on PCBs. You plug a receiver into the gate and you shove it out. The gates themselves, you can set up the basic course within 10-15 minutes. And if you then want all the extra stuff, it'll take a bit longer.
I remember Weston Park. I think you were setting Weston Park up for like 12 hours, and it was awesome though. I mean, I think the Nerf guns were the most fun part of that. I mean, everybody enjoyed trying to shoot them whoops down, but yeah, it was awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing how it's progressed since Weston Park, man.
It's come on a lot. While it might look similar, it's all the back end with all the streaming system, all of that. So we've still got it looking amazing. Oh, and I've probably got twice as many LEDs set up as well. So you know how many we had then, and I've got probably twice as many ready to go as well now. So yeah, should be cool.
I was going to say is to give people an idea. Now that it's down to 45 minutes, that may still sound like a long time, but I think that's down from about 45 hours. Yeah, 4, I think. So, that's the kind of engineering effort that has gone into making this a pop-up thing.
Yeah.
If I remember rightly, at Western, you were doing it in 2 shifts, while one slept in the van and the other stepped up and swapping round and carrying on.
We built the entire city for Western because we did Popham as the trial, and the Popham we just had literally the bare bones of the system. The LEDs were literally just LEDs onto metal and just literally bolted together, and that was the first trial of it. And then we spoke to you about a week later, and you're like, "Yeah, can you come to Popham?" I was like, bugger, their tent's a lot bigger. So we need kit. So we built an entire city out of polished, what was it, plastic or something.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Magic Pencil is the guy who helps you, isn't he?
He's
just come in the chat. He's one of our patrons.
So Dave's just logged in,
Dave,
and he's one of the guys in it, as well as Craig, who I don't think's logged in at the moment, but Craig Films, who the Nigel's announcer actually for Western all them years ago.
Yeah.
So Nigel, you got some Tiny Whoop stuff to talk about as well. Do you want to have a go?
Yeah. So
Tell us your news.
I'm guessing. I know from looking at the chat and who's on the chat, a lot of these people will know because they're running the clubs that are actually part of Tiny Whoop UK. So Monday we launched Tiny Whoop UK. Jesse Perkins went live and announced it. So Tiny Whoop UK is the first one of a series of very similar groups around the world. So we're just luckily enough in the UK we're the first to launch. It's officially a part of Tiny Whoop, and there's going to be basically a global club network of clubs around the world supported by Tiny Whoop. And the idea is to remove all the barriers to getting into the hobby and also to running clubs, because we recognize that there's clubs everywhere putting on Whoop events, and there's not a lot of support for them. So we've designed a lot of software and databases and everything that's running now and helping them. I think the most important feature is the map, is the interactive map. We've got a Google map on the site. All the clubs that are currently part of Tiny Whoop UK, there's 12 on there now, another 3 going on tonight. They're all on the map with the location, and the idea is pilots can find a club finally, because normally they have to go on Facebook and search everywhere and try and find a club, and it can be a nightmare on Facebook. So go on the map and click on one of the links. Oh, there it is, just like magic.
Lovely.
Any one of those clubs, you can click on a club, and that brings up information. So each club has their own page. It tells you about the club, any events, links to the websites, articles. And what we've done as well, those pages for the clubs, they have an admin login to the system where they update their own page. So it's almost like a little bit like a mini Facebook for Tiny Whoop, if you like. They can put their own photographs on their articles,
that's good.
whatever they want. When they create an event and they list an event, what you'll find is that event is listed on their individual page. So if you want to find an event near you, you click on the club nearest to you and have a look what events they've got coming up. Or you can go onto the events page of the website and all the events are listed there. There's automatic registration for pilots. If they click on registration, it registers them for that event. They just need to put in their email address, their registered email address. And behind all of this is a lot of systems. A bit like Gav, we've gone crazy like Gav has. We've just created a lot of systems.
Do you know what, Nigel? There's this tiny little organisation, you might have heard of them, called the CAA, and they're really struggling to sort out some kind of registration system in the UK. Perhaps you could sell this to them for a reasonable price.
I'll tell you why they wouldn't like it. I'll tell you why they wouldn't like it, because it's completely free. It's free to the pilots. It's free to the clubs. There's not a charge to anybody So the CAA would ban that straight away.
What? How can you have a database that does £4 million isn't it, for a database?
Yeah, that's how much it costs.
Yeah, Tiny Whoop is covering the cost at the moment. We do have some revenue streams, but the cost isn't on the shoulders of the clubs or the pilots. So the idea is to grow the community, and you can't do that by suddenly just putting, we want to remove these barriers. And having a fee that they have to pay isn't removing barriers, so It's completely free. In the systems, next week we launch the race control system. We've got our own race control system, which is insanely easy to use. Basically, it's just click a few buttons and you're racing. It's that simple. It works with RF timers. It's called Whoop Control. That links into the website. So when a club creates an event and pilots register, when they open up race control, they click one button and all of the pilots that have registered are automatically put into the race control system without any typing or anything. And then they just click create heats, and it automatically does it. So a bit like what Gav's done. It doesn't run it for you, though. You do have to click start and stop between each heat. But then pilot membership, and there is membership if you go on the membership page, and pilots get an app. The app has a QR code on the front page with the picture of the pilot. When you go to a Tiny Whoop event now, you just show your app to the camera of the laptop or the PC or the tablet of the person running the event, and it automatically logs you into the race software without having to do anything.
Very clever stuff.
That's all running now, up and running. And then the app as well gives live race result updates straight to the app. So pilots don't have to go over to the race control or looking for a screen. It's all updated in real time to their app. So these are little things that we've put in place just to try and make it easier for pilots and for organisers, basically. So yeah, that's the basis of it. UK's first. Tiny Whoop USA will be next. Canada shortly after. Mexico. Australia is coming up. Hong Kong. And we're currently looking for the right people for Germany and France at the moment. So yeah, it's going to be huge.
Sounds really good.
There is a question in the chat from Ed.
I was just
asking
going to ask that one.
what's the spec of the route needed to join these events.
Right. Yes. That I'm glad he's asked that, because a lot of people, because this is coming from Tiny Whoop, they're suspecting that, I have to have a Tiny Whoop. I can tell you now, and Jesse Perkins will tell you the same, he actually doesn't care what people fly. The Tiny Whoop products, the drones, as good as they are, and I don't even own a Tiny Whoop myself. I'm heading up Tiny Whoop UK, and I don't own a Tiny Whoop. I've got motors on on my UR65, but it's not about the products. The products were always an extra for Jesse. It's always been about the parties, the events, and the community to Jesse. So you can fly a Tiny Hawk, a Beta FPV, a Mobula 6, which I've just got, which I think is absolutely awesome. You can fly anything. At the minute, we're limiting it to 1S, brushed or brushless, but 1S, simply because we want to make sure we don't want any accidents or anything, and 2S can get pretty hairy indoors. However, what we will be doing is having some 2S events and just making sure that the tracks are bigger and a bit safer. But a lot of the clubs, some of the clubs are running in bars and pubs, which is awesome because it makes it more social. Some of them are using social clubs. Paul Jaggers has some great events. I think you've been to some of Paul's events, Gav.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Got some good ones going now.
You look at Killer Quads. Killer Quads are in it's like a sports hall where they have trampolining and stuff like that, and they have a really big setup, but some really cool LED gates. Drone Circle in Manchester. It's a little British Legion function room at the back, but when it's filled with all the LED gates, it's absolutely crazy. So yeah, I mean,
I like the sound of the pub bit as well.
Yeah, that works for me.
It's drunk and win the race.
Do you know what the problem with the mini quad? I mean, you guys know I've been involved with the mini quads for years, but the problem that I've always found is that the girlfriends and the families, they just get bored because the guys are so much to do and prepare for, and you're in the pits all the time. And I first of all, I find that whooping is a lot more casual because you take your battery off and you put it on charge and that's it, and you're waiting for your next round. And I think with them being in bars and pubs, a lot of them, you find that the girlfriends and the families can go along as well and have a drink and socialise. And I just think whooping is far more social than the mini quad. I'm not taking anything away from mini quad. I'm just saying I think it's a different community or a different way of enjoying FPV.
Totally.
You've been doing it for a few years now. You
Yeah,
love
I
your
was just
fly and
thinking
your
the night
small
the night
stuff,
that we went to the pub with you were meeting the guys about the game, and
Was there a Freudian slip in there then, Gav?
Jesse was there.
There was one of those before the show started.
It wasn't
there?
one of them bars, Gav. It wasn't.
Was Jesse there? Or it was like it was
Yeah,
just
it was that in London at the Games Con.
that's the one. That's
Yeah,
I mean,
that was great fun. That
you came to the Comic Con,
Yeah,
but then we
yeah.
went to the bar afterwards, and we had had the projector going, and then basically some guy dressed as whatever he was dressed as, getting completely abused by quads, basically up on the big screen, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, I remember that event. That was a few summers ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
it was at AOL. Not what's it called in London? That great big, a bit like the NEC, but it's in London. It was there, weren't it?
XL Centre.
Yeah,
that's it. That's the one.
It didn't go too great, that the Comic Con one though, did it? It's that was kind of like the inspiration to like really get going on the course, was like because we just
there wasn't much room, wasn't there?
Yeah, we needed to organise it a lot more. It was like a last minute thing that was thrown together, and it was needed organising a lot more and all of that. So we did what we could, but it's that one was kind of inspirational, getting the course going, like really like doing a lot of work.
That must have been about 4 years ago, I think.
I can't even remember now.
A long time.
A few 3 years ago or something. I'd already been doing something on the course, but then that kicked it in overdrive.
How whoops have changed though over the last 12 months and become suddenly they've come to the forefront. They were seen as a secondary toy really to most FPVers, but now they're seen seriously, in their own right, and I think quite rightly so. And I think it's the advent of brushless motors has changed everything for whoops.
Am I allowed to bring my silly whoop? Is that?
Is
that too big?
Me and Nigel have had conversations about we've had conversations about working together and that, and we will be doing some stuff together.
Definitely.
But with my course, my main thing that I want is a HD camera. So the Mobler 7 HD or any free cells, I've seen that there's that new one that can fit the DJI. Anything like that can take a HD camera.
Look at that.
Does it have to?
That's got the Vista in it.
That's the DJI one.
That's the DJI Vista in a I guess you class this as Cine Whoop, but this one's 3. This one's 3S. This one's 3S, so I guess it wouldn't be able to go into these.
Not the
races.
tiny boot one, but you can definitely come and race that at Gav's.
Yeah. That's what I want.
Because we've had a bit of sun today, I went out and flew that. It's absolutely superb. And
did you put your sun cream on?
Suntan. Yeah. I have to put suntan cream on when it's overcast, don't I? Yeah. I flew that today. Absolutely amazing. Yeah. I also flew it. There's something called low latency mode, and I used high quality mode today, and there's barely any difference apart from the fact that the picture is like twice as good. I couldn't believe, like, the whole time I've been flying in low latency mode thinking this is amazing, flipped it up to high quality mode. I think it was hovering around 39 milliseconds delay, 39, so it goes from 20 to 30.
Could you feel that?
I couldn't, because if you go back to the split cameras when they were 50, people were flying those around.
It's not an unusable millisecond latency at all. There are a bunch of cameras that have been popular that have latencies that float around that anyway. It's not as big as you think it is, certainly for stuff like freestyle. I think some of the racers would definitely probably pick up on it running high quality as opposed to low latency, but for most of the freestyle and general flying around, then I haven't actually tried a high quality yet. I've just flown low latency on the DJI stuff, but
try it, NJ.
I'll give it a go.
I'll be putting a video out and it'll show. I think it did go up to 40 milliseconds, but I was like, when some of the initial CCD cameras that we were using ages ago, they were about 40, weren't they? Something like that. They weren't far off, I think.
Yeah,
The older you get, the slower you get anyway. So it might probably match.
Did anyone ever fly FPV with a Mobius?
Yes.
Not
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, I've still got them. You mean the little HD camera that you'd strap on the top?
What, you flew through the actual live feed?
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
it was like
I swear mine
I
here
used to use
somewhere.
the wall
an
and
H8 as well to fly with.
Yeah, the
That's-
Mobius. Because
that's how
that was the
flight
open
test-
source software, wasn't it? The Mobius, and
Yeah.
they used to sort of update it every so often. I swear I've seen it somewhere around here, and I was like, oh my god! I forgot about it. In fact,
Mobius.
that survived a drowning. My Mobius that went underwater in a ditch for a bit, and it was blinking and doing something weird, but I left it to dry out, and it worked again. So,
Well, the
yeah,
Mobius, that was one of those products that was like pivotal because you didn't have to spend 400 quid on a GoPro.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you got that. So there's been a few.
I've still got a Mobius and it still works.
I've probably we've
I've
all
got-
probably got about 10 of them because they were so you could buy 10 and it'd be the price for one GoPro, wouldn't it?
Mobius and then the Yi, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, then
Yeah.
the Yi that came next. That was a big step up, wasn't it?
It was.
That was very close to a GoPro. Remember when Flight Test? They were doing was FPV using the GoPro output, weren't they? And that must have been.
oh yeah,
I flew on GoPro as well.
I flew on a GoPro.
Wow.
Yeah.
The actual pitch was really good, unless you put it into the sun, in which case you couldn't see anything at all. But as an actual camera, it was very good.
Yeah.
The very first FPV cameras were all like that, though. The terrible wide dynamic range where you turn into the sun and it's like, well,
wash
it's
out.
black and there's light, so I'm going to
Yeah.
point towards the light and hope I don't crash.
Which is precisely the time everybody was out on those early evenings. Oh, summer's still here. Let's go out. It's like, I can't see anything. Just darkness.
Oh, this thing you can point. I did it today because there was no clouds. Pointed straight at the sun, and I could see everything. Whatever they've done with this camera, the dynamic range on it is just great. I mean, better than a GoPro. Obviously, it doesn't have like doesn't have the hyper smooth or anything like that, but incredible.
Because recently within the last week I've bought the Hero 8 Black.
Yes,
I tried out that hyper. I was talking to Bloods about this, but I tried out the hyper smooth. I did it on 2 different flights, one on and one off. I couldn't see any difference.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't because that's you flying, isn't it? You look like you fly with hyper smooth on all of the time. You see, when
that's his fingers. Hyper.
What do you know? Do you know what I call hyper smooth? NJ mode is what I call it.
I paid all that money for that mode, and it's not there. It's very good though. The Black's very very impressive image quality. But I did also look at, because that's the same quad that's got the DJI system in it, and I did. When I was looking at the side-by-side of the 1080 off the air unit and the GoPro, obviously the GoPro picture's fantastic, but there are still instances where the dynamic range can get a bit sucky with a low sun.
Yeah.
And as you say, the DJI camera is just, it doesn't care what it's pointing at. It's really very, very good.
Yeah. How long until we can get one of those in like, something like a Tiny Hawk? I mean, I never expected the Vista to come along. So what are they working on now? Kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like the FPV picture of this so much. This the Caddx HD, I've got in one of these inside this the Whoop one. So this is the little Whoop 1080p camera, and the actual recording is great on that.
It's the live feed. It's always been the problem with them.
Feed is sketchy.
Yeah, that's the only thing that I really struggle with, is that camera feed is just a bit too sucky for me to enjoy the flight. But the recording, the 1080p 60s, is pretty damn good.
I think that's what people do with those cameras, is they sort of sacrifice being in the moment to have an end result of HD.
It's all going in the right direction very fast, though. It won't be long before we're getting everything we want.
Yeah.
Have you updated it and managed to fly 26 minutes yet?
26 minutes. You're talking about the 48 kilohertz PWM hype train. Well, to be fair, I'll call it a hype train, as Carrie Kitten found out. It's a thing, mainly for that kind of efficiency in cruising throttle. So I don't know how much difference it would make in a full-on killer race where you're at top throttle a lot. But it's definitely a thing, and they've definitely proven that under the right circumstances, you can get a much more efficient use of your battery. You know, people was getting 1.5 minutes extra flight time out of a 48 kilohertz PWM as opposed to the slower. So brilliant. Again, just people are just diving headfirst into squeezing every little thing out of this technology that they can.
There have been reports. There have been reports, though, of it blowing ESCs. So I would still be very cautious.
That's what I always say. It's if you're going to live on the bleeding edge, you're going to get cut now and again. And these are the things. And the JSC forums, if there's a specific thread in, dare I say it, RC groups. If you're brave enough to go into RC groups, there is a thread there, and the mod's very active, and there's a lot of people helping contribute to that moving forward, testing right up to 96k with interesting results there too. But yeah, likewise, there is the chance that you can nuke some stuff. So proceed with caution.
Yeah, if you look on the issue page on the GitHub repository as well, it's quite a good place. For every 100 people doing it well, as soon as someone does it and they lose a couple of ESCs and they can't get them back, obviously that's alarming. And as yet, there doesn't seem to be a very good debug story there. That people will look at the logs and sort of give some information about, it looked like it couldn't contact your ESC and something went wrong, but I haven't heard of anybody being able to recover the ESC as soon as it's gone to the bad place. That's the problem.
That's the problem, yeah. That's why I wanted to mention it.
Yeah, you start nuking FETs and stuff like that, it's game over. But equally, I've actually read through most of that thread, and there's definitely been instances of people flashing the wrong targets and just a bunch of pilot error things where it's not always been the fault of the intended use. So but you know, squeaky wheel gets the oil.
How does it get so much more efficiency than like 1 extra minute flight time? How is it doing that?
We haven't really got long enough.
Fair enough.
Graphs and a whiteboard and
that's another
equations.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So Nigel, all your Whoop stuff, does it have to have ducks to be?
Because Tony, we went to the makerspace thing. We're all flying tiny whoops. Tony's the only one that hasn't got ducks.
No, he goes, I've got a whoop, and he brings out his Cinewhoop, and he's buzzing that around like it is a whoop.
There's a distinction here as well. Tony's Cinewhoop is just a 3-inch quad with ducks and a GoPro on it. That's not really a whoop. It's just a ducted quad.
I think we need more context than that. That is technically a 3-inch quad.
Oh, no.
Have you got that thing to hand, Tony? Because that thing, I don't look at that as a 3-inch.
It's quite big. Gav's going to go and get it.
It's a 3-inch. It's a 3-inch quad, but somehow has the footprint of a 7-inch quad.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at what defines a whoop, I think ducks is one of the things. But if you go and put on one of your X classes, Tony, I don't think that would.
That's the next step.
Just some like bin lids or something around them.
Yeah, that'd probably work actually.
Don't put ideas like that in his head, Andrew.
Tires, that's what you need.
Quite big.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's that? That must weigh more than a normal 5-inch.
It does with a 4S battery on it. It does what, and the GoPro, it does weigh a fair bit.
It's when they were trying to do soldering or whatever it was on the desk, and he literally flies over this desk and just cleared it.
Well, blew everything away. Yeah. I do enjoy flying it though.
That's where Hypersmooth comes in, NJ, because those models are quite difficult to fly. They're not the easiest to fly, are they, Tone? They're really unstable. So that's where your Hypersmooth would benefit you, NJ. You need to get one of those and start making adverts for Argos or whatever it is that Tony does.
Oh, wait, don't take my claim to fame away.
Sorry, Tone. I wasn't belittling you.
Okay. So what I'm trying to say, Nige, does it have to be 1S with a guard on it? You know, or can you fly it without prop guards?
If it's a league event, because there is, I probably didn't mention, there is actually going to be a national league as well, and the British Championships, which is going to be at Wings and Wheels. You were there last year, Tony.
Oh, I love that event. Oh, I'll have
Yeah.
to,
So we're having the British Championships at Wings and Wheels. So we've got a separate marquee now for the whoops at Wings and Wheels. We're going to fully LED it out and everything. So all the clubs are coming to help with that. And each club's going to bring at least one track element. So it's like a cross section of the whole country, which is pretty cool, and name different elements after each club. And there will be, for the league events, 1S and has to be ducted, and it's mainly for safety and to keep a fairly level playing field as well, because it's league event. Individual clubs, if they want to run an event that's 2S unducted, it's entirely up to them, because they're responsible clubs, and as long as they're looking after the safety, that's fine. But league events will be 1S ducted, because that's essentially what a whoop is. We've tried to define what is a whoop, and the consensus is anything under 85 millimeters ducted. But people were going, well, no, 65 was the original, it has to be 65, but things have changed. So we think 85 and under ducted is a rough estimate of what a tiny whoop is, or what a whoop is. So, but yeah. So yeah, your cine whoop there wouldn't qualify, I'm afraid. So.
Okay.
It's as big as a whoop gate.
Oh no, I'm gonna have to get on repairing my my whoop. I've had it a few years, but I just need to get that camera going again.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Gav's interactive track. I've been experimenting myself, but going the complete opposite way to all the LEDs and and going completely back. And I've got the because I've got so many of the old, the cloth gates that fold up and spring out when you open the package. I've got loads of them. So I've got to do something with these, because they're just going to be left in a cupboard now. So I got 2 huge UV cannons, and I've painted them in UV reactive paint, and you wouldn't believe the results. These things glow like they're on fire. It's absolutely awesome. So
Need some UV LEDs and it'll proper stand out.
Yeah.
The trouble I've found with the UV is the light doesn't travel very far, and it doesn't spread well either. So unless you've got a really big UV lamp, see, these 2 lamps are out of nightclubs. They're the great big. They're like the great big the sawdust type bulbs, and there's also, it has to be safe UV, because some UV is harmful to the eyes.
Yeah, just think of the amazing tan you'd come out with as well.
Yeah.
I'm not looking happy about this idea.
No, I factor 100 for me if I was that.
God's sake.
But yeah, what I'm really loving is, and obviously Gav, I guess you're sort of the king of this movement, if you like. And it's almost a separate movement where people are experimenting, making gates and using Arduino and everything to really, and people are, I mean, the smaller clubs, obviously they're making the infinity gates, with the mirrored edges and stuff, which are really cool. And the latest one, which I think the first club, I'm going to get told off because all these clubs are on here and they're going to kill me if I pick the wrong one, but I'm pretty sure it was Cerberus Velvet from Killer Quads that did the first wormhole gate, and it looked absolutely superb. If it wasn't him, it was Paul Jaggers, because he had one at Christmas at his event.
Even watching the videos
of LEDs.
Oh, yeah, it just does your brain in, even just watching the video back, let alone what that must be like live. But for those few seconds of going through one, it's so trippy. It's awesome.
It is it takes me back to the 90s.
It's like those the fun fair where you walk through the rotating tunnel and feel a bit sick as you try and. You remember those? And anyone been to those terribly cheap fun fairs? Yeah, it's kind of that effect, but even more psychedelic. It's
So
awesome.
what is a wormhole gate then? Like I'm not sure what you're referring
Is it
to.
mirror trick? Mirrors like angled? Or
That's
something?
the infinity gate. Yeah, you've got mirrors. Usually it's a triangle, and you have LEDs at one end around the edge. And what happens is those LEDs bounce off that mirror onto that one, and you get that infinite effect as you fly through. So you see, when you go in, you can't actually see which one's the exit because they all look the same. There's like 1,000 exits.
Just go straight.
So unless you fly dead straight, if you lose or you hit the side, you're stuffed because you can't find your way out. They're crazy.
Brilliant.
And then the wormhole gate is like LEDs in a circle getting smaller and smaller as you fly through. And if you check out Killer Quad's latest video that they've just put up on YouTube, there's an example of a good wormhole gate there as well. They're great.
And we got to do a shout out, Frank, to a tiny whoop club down near Brighton.
Yeah, so around near Jack.
Port Spade, is it?
Gary Short of the West Sussex Indoor Whoop Racing Group on Facebook. If you're around Brighton Way, they are hoping, or they're sort of in talks to sign up to the Tiny Whoop UK group, so they'll be on there soon. But yeah, they're holding a bunch of events as well. So just another group to add to the list.
Yeah, that's probably the closest one to me. So I might go down then once I get my
go join them in the summer because we're always.
Yeah, I saw their video. I think they've got an infinity gate, the triangular thing with the reflection. That's a bit crazy.
I have to go down and see them guys because they're only half hour away from me. So
I thought
they were close to the Chichester end, which makes it closer to me, but they're closer up to your end.
Yeah, they're not far away from me.
Further drive.
About 40 minutes, I reckon.
You see a lot less stressed tiny whoop organisers than you do mini quad organisers, I tell you, because there's no, you fit it all in the boot of your car, you turn up, it takes you half an hour to set everything up, even though it's LED, and you're racing, and I mean, Western Park, God, that's why I'm grey and bald, because of Western Park and setting that up and organising it, and I'm glad I'm glad Ben took it on and he's running it now because. Yeah, it's a killer. But whooping is so easy. As long as you've got an indoor venue, just, plug in your LEDs. I mean, most of us now have these, they're all battery powered. We're using, I'll tell you what I've got is, and I got the idea from Drone Circle, so I know he's watching, was hula hoops, LED hula hoops. And they're absolutely perfect. They're the exact right size as well. And 10 quid each. Didn't have to build anything. Yeah,
I'm gonna have to get on the phone to Drone Junkie and get myself a camera or another whoop. I think.
Well, Aries was asking in the chat. He's not flown a whoop in 18 months or so. One recommend a decent one to go for.
Maybe the 6.
That's
if you look at all the responses.
I've just got a Mob 6, and it's the best whoop I've ever flown. It's absolutely crazy. But I think the UR65 as well. Because I think they're a bit easier to learn on because they're just not. That Mob 65 is so punchy. But
the Mobula 6 sounds so much nicer than the UR65.
Yeah.
We were listening to them the other night, and the Mobula 6 is so quiet, and then someone takes off of the UR65, and it's just this rattly bag of buckets. It flies lovely, but it just doesn't sound it.
If you've not flown for a while, I'd go for the 19,000 kV, not the 25, because the 25 is just insane. The 19 is a lot more flyable for indoor.
Yeah.
God,
I had the 21,000 kVs on, and it just destroyed all my batteries, to be honest.
Mikey in the chat says he's got I have an alien whoop. Has anyone flown the alien whoop?
They did a whoop?
Yeah, well, it sounds like it. I don't know how big it is, though.
There's the Meteor 65 from Beta FPV as well. Very similar in sort of size and shape and performance to the Mobula.
There you go.
Pretty good.
There's the UAVs. If anyone in the chat wanted to know what these guys were like.
Yeah, nice.
A couple of those.
I think they 1S then.
Yeah, they'll do one end. They are just 1S. And I think the UK and all the ones that were tagged with flags these had the smart audio, so these were a little bit of a better idea than the bog standard one. But they're both still going. They both still work. They're great little.
Then the UK have slightly better motors as well, I think.
I believe so, but
I think so. Yeah. It did.
Yeah, let's see what the
Less rat
Quite
there,
heavy
so-
though. The UR65 is, when you look at the weights that they've got the Mob 6 down to now, I think they're quite heavy.
Those are
Okay,
Mod
so
6.
the UK
Keep me tiny.
the
Can
UK is
you,
1900 kV and the standard one is 1700 kV. So there was a bit of a difference.
It's the,
Nearer the camera, please, Gary Kitten. I didn't quite see that. I see.
Oh.
tiny little camera in there that weighs nothing.
Looks cool.
Yeah, it's a decent camera as well. It's the Runcam Nano 3, I think.
Mm.
And that's the Meteor with the new BT2 connector. So I hear it's a little bit better, not like a load better, but yeah, I really like flying that. This one again though, really high KV. But can you not just put a throttle limit on if you get the high KV one?
You can do.
That's why I went for the 25,000 on this, because they're actually lighter if you go for a higher KV, because it's less windings to get a higher KV. Oh, very smart.
You've added them on, I take it.
Yeah. Well, one thing I'd say is, I've been to a few events. A lot of everybody will make sure they get the right motors, and they might change the props, and they'll do different things. They'll even hydro dip the covers, you know, the canopies and stuff. And nobody puts LEDs on, and it's so hard to see them when they're going around the track. So really, you should be putting LEDs on them so that people can see where they are on the track, even if it's just for a commentator, or just so you can dodge them out of the way. You know, that's just one of them. I think they're £3 each from Drone Junkie. They call them the disco LEDs. They're not addressable. You just straight onto the power and off they go.
Robin in the chat has a question. He wants to know: is there an effort to get kids into the Tiny Whoop events? Because I think with the Rotor Rush that you've been heavily involved with as well, there's been the academy, right?
Yeah.
Is that following over into the Tiny Whoop UK?
It is. I probably shouldn't announce this, but since you guys have been so good, I'll give you a bit of a hint. The Tiny Whoop part of the sim will be splitting off sometime in the near future from Rotor Rush. If you are a Rotor Rush member, you'll still get the Tiny Whoops, but there will be a standalone Tiny Whoop sim. And the reason being is we want to be able to do two things. One, every single club, the race software that we have, not only runs real races, but also this very same software will run the esport version. So every single club, once we do this, will be able to run their own online competitions of inter-club stuff. The other reason that we're doing it is because we are looking to introduce a program of training for new pilots and especially young kids. So it's at the minute learning to fly. There's so many different videos, and you can use sims, but there's no coordinated effort to say this is what you do first, this is what you do next, and also this is how you charge your battery. This is how you set up your, all those videos are available if you search YouTube. But where do you go to find the right information and make sure that it's right for you? So we'll be consolidating that onto the website from various people. And we're already speaking to a friend of Andy RC's about this, Mr. Lee, Payless 360.
Well, a friend of the show, we should say.
Yeah. So, and various other people to help us put this together. And then the clubs will be helping to do that. All the clubs that are on that map have got an open door policy that they welcome anybody to come along. They'll put the goggles on, see if it's for you, and give you advice. So, yeah, the whole point of Tiny Whoop UK and the Tiny Whoop Club Network globally is to help people get into this hobby and to support those already in it. So, yeah, absolutely. It'd be pointless if we just kept it to ourselves, wouldn't it?
It sounds really interesting. I'm itching to get on the phone to Drone Junkie now. Get me Tiny Whoop out.
I mean, if it wasn't for Tiny Whoops this year, I don't know what I'd have done, because it with just how the weather's been.
Oh, the weather's been awful, hasn't it?
Shocking. It's been more. I'm trying to think if I actually flew Yeah, probably. I could probably count on my hands how many times I've flown 5-inch models this year. It's all been at least sub 3-inch, mostly, just because the weather's been shocking. Up here at least. From
No, it's everywhere. It's
Everywhere,
horrible.
mate.
Yeah, there's
Like again today, and it's
another low pressure coming in as well. So we're going to see
this weekend.
winds.
It's good. It's good fun.
Up to 40 mile an hour. I think we're looking in most parts of the UK.
Yeah, rain and wind on Sunday.
a light breeze, we call that up here.
Yeah. Are you waving goodbye, Carrie?
I was waving. Lewis Stephen M said, "Carrie Kitten, give us a wave." There you go. That's for you.
Any just while we're in the sort of the last 9 minutes of the show, Andrew, is there? You love this bit. I can see it in your face already. Is there any regulation updates? Anything we need to know about, or we all still where we are at the minute?
Pretty much stands as it has been. So if you're a member of the associations and you're waiting for your operator ID to turn up because you signed up through them, then that will still be coming along in the next couple of 2 or 3 weeks, something like that.
We haven't left enough time for us to rant about Bruce's videos from last week.
Oh,
there it is.
Oh, never
Go on, Carrie. Go on.
Right, disclaimer first, and then
but otherwise, it's under 250 grams. You're good till July. Then after July, if you're flying under 250 grams outdoors, but with a camera on, then you'll also need to be registered. But if you're indoors, then it doesn't matter.
I reckon that's going to change. As you know, I used to be a cop, and I know a little bit about the law. And there's a big thing that nobody seems to be shouting about with this 250 if it's got a camera on. The only reason they've already said that anything under 250 grams doesn't have to register. Forget the camera bit for now, because it's classed as a toy and is not a danger to airspace. That is the CAA's remit, is air safety. They don't have any powers or any legislative, it's not easy to say, is it? Powers over data protection or privacy. It's not that they cannot make laws on that because it's not in their remit. To say that if a drone has a camera on, it now has to be registered and now it comes under us, actually is not lawful, and it will only take a good lawyer to test that in court and case law to change the whole thing, and then 250s will be unregulated, full stop. They're saying that, and they've got no legal basis to do so, but it needs to be challenged in a court. So I think that's going to be really interesting in the future.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah, that's great.
But on the toy side, toy is actually really, really heavily, like there are lots of legislation about getting something classified as a toy generally, because to have something safe enough that kids can play with it, but there's a lot of testing that has to go involved. There's a lot of design considerations. So just because it's small doesn't mean it's a toy. So that's an important distinction, that when we're coming into the new July categories, there is an under 250 gram kind of classification that is for if it's a one that's already existing or one that you've built yourself. But there's also a lightweight category of these new kind of certificated ones that are, class C1, C2, C3, C4. And so there's I think the C1 on that, it comes under the toy legislation, so it has to meet all those kind of toy testing rules. But that doesn't mean that a tiny whoop is classed as a toy. So there is an important distinction there to make, but it doesn't really mean a lot at this point.
No.
But
changes all the time, doesn't it? We'll be having to have the CAA FAA tags that they're having to have before that. Yeah. They're doing a protest, aren't they, in America? They're actually going out to the FAA. Rotor Riot posted a video. They're going and organising a proper protest.
This isn't the same group that we're going to storm Area 51, is it? That went well.
No, it's not. No. Right, Curry, 10 minutes to talk about the war.
We might as well, because I think Bruce, Mr. Clickbaity himself, was being, I think, slightly outrageous and slightly disingenuous against all people. Because what he was basically saying is, if you register, you're a traitor and you're selfish. And I don't think it's right to go out and vilify people, because there's many people that are going to be like cautious and want to be on the right side of the law, because they have a place to fly which might be public, and why should they stop flying? Equally, if you don't want to register and you want to carry on, good for you. But I don't think doing either thing is going to change the law at this point, where we've already got 80,000 people registered and it's just going up. I don't think for people to say, "Oh, you must all not register, else you're bad. You're being bad to the people that won the war for us in the Battle of Britain," and all that poppycock he was spouting on. Just absolute.
Yes. I don't think that was the right thing to compare it to.
No.
That was pretty. I think it was fairly insensitive, if I'm honest. But
it was like he was using bullets and ammunition and just firing it off.
Yeah, there's a better way to put the point across.
But the thing that really, really annoyed me is this constant accusation that the community in the UK hasn't fought really hard against the regulations. But I think he shows himself how much effort we've done. If you go back to 2016, back to when the EASA rules were first being proposed, go watch the XJet video on that. Listen to what the proposals were like, in his words, when they first came out, and then look at what they are now and see how far we've come, see all the effort that has gone in through FPV UK and BMFA and us, and people in the chat contacting their local MPs and responding to the consultations. And there's been a lot of effort going on. We've brought the regulations back to a point where essentially you pay £9 and put your name on a bit of paper, and otherwise very little changes. If you go back to what it originally was, it was very different. So
absolutely. But I'll say it. I've said it before. I'll say it again now. Bruce, come on the show. Come and have a chat with us. We love you very much and all the wonderful things you've done for the hobby. So we're all friends here. Come and have a nice chat with us, and we'll talk it all through.
We'll set you straight.
It'd be great to have Bruce on.
Like for me, for example, I mean, if I'm a traitor, what if your club?
You're not just a traitor, Andy. You're complicit in fraud. Did you not hear what he said?
Well, what about my what about my club that requires
They're
me
all
to...
complicit in fraud as well.
Oh right, okay, yeah.
You're like a big crime syndicate over there.
And
that's it. This sort of vilification of people that are just having to act within the law winds me up, because I tend to remember when Bruce got his wings taken away, he didn't do much other than whine about it constantly. I didn't see him sort of, getting much protesting together other than whining, and eventually he got it sorted, not because he put up a good protest, just because people got somebody else sort of intervened for him and got him sorted.
I always go back to other hobbies as well. There are other hobbies you have to pay a license for. Fishing in New Zealand is 133 New Zealand dollars a year as an adult if you want to fish. So some hobbies are worth paying for.
Why do you know that?
So random. Just because my brother and my father were big into fishing, and I know sort of like loopholes they had to jump through, that and the number of fish that you can take and the number of fish that you have to put back and all of this, and the licenses. So $133 just to fish, I would say is quite expensive compared to £9 a year, but that's just me.
I reckon if we look statistically as well, you'll find out that more people were killed fishing than drone flying.
Also,
definitely. Yeah.
Are these defined as rod incidents? I'm not sure what the correct terminology is.
Yeah, just accident. People go to hospital all the time, like impaled with rods through their necks and things.
Yeah,
It's a
exactly.
weekly event.
I think it's more like sharks and stingrays killing people, I think, when they catch those things.
And I wonder why, they'd feel inclined to make more regulations about, it's just a hobby. It's not as if anyone's building missiles, right?
What, like Bruce does? He's a bad guy.
Exactly. That's my point. There we go.
I think we are dwindling our chances of getting Bruce on the show.
He'll come on. We'll get him on one of these days.
The more we say against it, the more he'll want to come on and defend it. So what else can we say?
Would you guys be up for having Jesse Perkins on?
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'd love to come on and tell you a bit more about the Tiny Whoop network and the plans for world domination and all the rest of it, as someone put it.
If you like set it up and talk to us, we're definitely.
There's something in the FAA proposals that doesn't exclude flying indoors, I believe, because in fact they say actually you can't fly indoors because you can't get a GPS signal indoors. Therefore, we can't tell where your ID is. So you can't fly indoors. I'm afraid there's some silly thing like that going on.
Really?
I believe so. So that's why they're protesting. It's there's some ridiculous things.
And that's from the FAA, and nobody's thought to say, hold on a minute, it's indoors. Your powers of.
Well, it's not about that. It's about knowing who's flying what and where. And they should say they are proposals, like ours were proposals. So it's sort of like an open question thing. So of course, when everybody reads horrendous things like that, that's probably not going to be the end result. I would hope not, anyways. Or banning indoor flying because you can't get a GPS signal.
Nobody thought that Trump would start building the wall, but he has. This is America we're talking about.
Yeah,
sometimes
but it's not...
outrageous things are mentioned just so when they back off, they can say, "Oh, look how we've compromised," and everybody's happy now.
Yeah, I think it's more of a fence than a wall, though, isn't it? In places,
The wind blew it down last week.
Yeah, the wind blew it down.
This is concern, doesn't it?
On that note, Frank.
Yeah, but we should say, if you don't want any of this politics and you don't want any of the stress and running away from police, then you can quite happily go to some of these events and fly your tiny whoops and enjoy FPVing and enjoy racing and meeting up with people and quite often at these events having a drink and meeting up with your mates and having a good time and not worrying about any of this. So that's as good a recommendation for whooping as anything, I think.
Make sure that you have your drink after you've done your races.
No, have it before. It loosens you up a bit. Gets
No. Police
Where
person.
was the disclaimer? Bloody hell!
I don't think there's any law about drunk flying indoors.
I think there is. Actually, Rotor Riot. They did that, didn't they? And they got a lot of stick for it.
They did. Can you just do your bit, Curry? It's supposed to be at the start, but
sorry. Any views expressed by any guest on this show, mainly me, it seems, are personal and may not reflect the views of the host or any other participant in the show.
Thank you.
There needs to be a disclaimer award for each episode awarded. I think Curry's won it this week for sure.
Yeah, well, Andy needed a week off for a change. It's only fair.
Did, yeah, exactly.
So thank you everyone for joining us this week, and thank you for all our Patreons and everyone that listens and watches along and follows along in the chat as well. So this week we have
everybody point to the window.
Oh god, it's gonna go wrong.
Which way? There we go. We've had Tony. We've had Gav.
Yeah.
We've had Curry.
No.
We've had NJ.
No.
Failed.
We've had Andy. We've had Nigel.
Oh, I give up.
And Ivy, Frank. Thank you very much, and see you all next week. Good night.
See you guys.
That is not going to.
Goodbye.
That's not going to translate well on the audio version, is it? That.
We'll just cut that bit out.
Cheers, guys.